Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Big Give's Green Match Fund webinar. We're delighted to have you. We're just going to give it a minute to let everyone join and then we'll get started. Hi to everyone just joining. We're just going to give it 1 minute to let everyone join the webinar and then we'll jump straight in. Amazing. It is 12:01, so I think we can get started today. But thank you again to everyone for joining today's webinar. It's lovely to see a few familiar names here and a few new ones. Today on the call, my name is Bethany. I'm a marketing and comms manager at Big Give. I'm joined by my colleague Sahil, and we're also joined by two of the amazing team of Duna Films who will be introducing themselves later on in the session. Just to get started, we'll go over a little bit of housekeeping, which I'm sure you're all very well aware of already. But firstly, at the bottom of your Zoom panel, you'll see a chat function. Please set that to everyone. Feel free to introduce yourselves here. You can share ideas and interact with everyone throughout the session. You can also share here any tech issues you're having, and we're happy to respond to those there. If you have any questions throughout the session, you'll also see a Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom panel. Please do use this to put your questions in. We'll aim to answer all of those questions at the end and get through as many as possible. If you need captions for any reason, you should see a caption button also at the bottom of your Zoom panel, and you'll be able to find enable the live transcript of the webinar. And finally, this webinar will be recorded and available to watch on Big Give's YouTube channel after the session, so you can watch it again or share with any colleagues if needed. And if we don't get to any of your questions during this Q&A session, please do send us an email and we're very happy to pick up any remaining questions there as well. So before I pass on to Duna, just a little brief update on the Green Matchman campaign. So you should have all received a notification of an offer at this stage. You'll also have access to all of the resources available in the campaign portal, in the Big Give campaign portal. So you'll have access to this Trello board. This is where we upload all of our templates, access to any links to case studies, as well as Canva templates that you can use and edit and make in your own brand colors and add your own logos, etc. So if you haven't already had access to this Trello board, I definitely encourage you to go there and have a look. And you can also access just Big Give's campaign logos if you want to create your own assets completely in-house. So that's absolutely fine as well. And just to briefly go over part of the campaign messaging for this year, we're taking a lot of the campaign messaging that we had last year in the sense of keeping it fun, keeping it lighthearted, and keeping it positive. We really want to emphasize this great planet saving deal and this opportunity to have your donations doubled. And we find that that is a brilliant incentive when encouraging your donors and supporters to get on board. The key thing is playing around with that kind of 2 for 1, saving two trees for one, for example, or building two solar panels versus one for your money, and also just playing around with that kind of positive and humorous messaging, double donations, double savings. It doesn't really get much better than that. And obviously referencing the kind of feel good factor of donating, we know that it's very satisfying and it feels good to be able to donate, but it feels even better when you know that donation is going to be doubled. So really bringing in and weaving in that positive messaging throughout the campaign is really important. And you'll see that emphasized in those campaign assets that we've created as well in that Trello board. But to give you a few more details on exactly where we're taking the campaign messaging and how that's showcased in our film this year, I will stop there and pass on to the team at Duna.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is our first webinar we've ever done, and so we're very excited to be here. So I'm Gemma. I'm exec creative producer at Duna Films, and I'm with Matilda, my lovely colleague. She is creative director at Duna and is also a co-founder. I'm just going to share my screen. So hopefully everybody can see my screen now and still hear me. Great. So this webinar is all about impact filmmaking and how to get it right. So we're talking about making films on no and low budgets, which I know charities often don't have lots of budget to put towards marketing and fundraising assets creation. You know, you're utilizing your assets and putting them in the best place possible, and that's not always a priority, as we know, with films. We are well versed in this field. So we are a core team of 6 people. We're creatives, filmmakers. We make lots of films for charities. We make short docs, design assets, live events. We've worked with, hopefully some of you that are here today all might see this. So we've worked with Unseen UK recently, who kind of strive to end modern slavery and forced labour in the workforce and with businesses and lots of other people. We work with lots of environmental charities and NGO. To be honest, most of our roster is non-profit clients. And yeah, we're kind of trying to make lots of different impact through the film assets and creative work that we're making. So we work with organizations of all sizes. Everyone's calling for positive actions from stakeholders, donors, and the public often. Our mission is to really use strategic storytelling to make action happen on the climate and nature crisis and to make social change happen as well. We want to galvanize audiences. We want to avoid fluff and greenwashing whilst really staying inspirational. I think that's a very delicate balance that some of you might have some thoughts on, particularly as environmental charities. But we're always trying to talk about the solutions rather than the problems, but also make sure that's not played down. And there's kind of lots of different techniques we use to tell stories about the climate and nature crisis without being completely terrifying, as we know it is. So some of our impact, our work has helped convince CEOs to weave nature into their business strategies. We do a lot of work with the TNFD. We've engaged the public on global oceans initiatives, and we've inspired construction workers to recognise and report the signs of modern slavery, as I was saying. We've covered off the topics we'll be talking about today. And if you want any advice or have any questions or anything, obviously feel free to reach out to us directly, and please go on our website and watch our show reel. We're very proud of it and all the impact that we're making. So I'll hand over to Tids.
Hi everyone, really excited to be part of this webinar and hear directly from you guys of what you need and how we can help you as filmmakers. So the power of storytelling in charity films. 72% of donors say they're very likely to donate to a non-profit after watching a video about their work. So that's pretty amazing. And we all know that film can be one of the sort of pricier elements in a campaign or a charity budget. But there's a reason charities keep coming back to it, because it works. Again and again, we see powerful films at the heart of the campaigns that don't just hit fundraising targets, they smash them. So we really believe that the right film can unlock new audiences, grab media attention and generally change minds and hearts. And the best thing about a film, you can use it over and over again. But so how do you justify on spending on a film to stakeholders, and how do you make sure you're getting the most impact out of your money? So it all comes to smart planning and being clear on how you measure the film's impact. So understanding what drives costs so you can be strategic in how you use them. And the good news, you all know that most charities already have what makes a great film, which is a really, really powerful story. So a great film doesn't just throw facts at people, it makes them feel something, it sparks action, hopefully, whether that's donating or signing up or even just seeing the world a little differently. And it doesn't have to be glossy or big budget production to do that. You can tell a sort of incredible story with limited resources. You just need to know how to shape it, who you're speaking to, and what you want them to do after watching it. So we'll run through how you do that now.
And I think that's a really nice thing that Tiz just mentioned is, charities have rich storytelling in abundance, and that's not the case for lots of brands. So they're obviously, this, but you're in a very unique position to tell those wonderful stories and put them on the screen in whatever format you wish to do so. And we'll go through the number of ways you can do that. I obviously also forgot to say that we're working on the Big Give campaign film for the Green Match Fund, which is the most important one and why we're here. And we've had a lot of fun doing that. So we'll take you through as an example how we've kind of honed the messaging with Beth and Sahil and their team and how we've put that into practice, and something that we hope is quite fun and engaging and different from the usual climate comms that we get. And, you know, it's also, it was a budget-friendly way of doing it, you know, making massive productions and shoots, and particularly scripted pieces, are often very expensive, so we went with a different route. So firstly, we'll be talking about how to hone your brief, which everything starts with a really good brief. You know, it's the basis of all stakeholders coming together and agreeing on something and making sure everybody is aligned. They understand the costs that might be incurred. And we might be preaching to the choir here, but, you know, a brilliant brief is priceless. And I do think that Big Give did an amazing job at crafting a really good brief with really strong messaging, really strong call to action, and like a really good jumping off point. So if you are keen to write your own brief, then please do grab a paper and pen. We can share this document afterwards so you can see these questions. But if it is in your interest, just have a think about these things. So we're also not going to cover off today narrative scripted pieces. Those often exceed around 25K in budget. Today we're talking about no and low budget filmmaking, so that's not suitable to talk about. So firstly, think about your audience. So what is the demographic profile of your audience or donors? What do they like and connect with? What do you want them to think, feel, and do after seeing the film? What position are they in now? What change do you want to see? And how can you inspire them to act? And really think about yourself. You know, why are you involved as individuals in this charity or project? How did you get involved in the first place? What kind of pulled on your heartstrings or made you want to commit your time into the third sector? Because, you know, it's often the same thing. You know, consumers are people too, which is a horrible corporate way of saying things, but, you know, we're all people and we often are all engaged in a similar sort of thing. But also, you know, there are niche audiences who you can do research on. And if you have any stats or information on that audience, it's super helpful to share when writing your brief, or with your agency if you're working with one, or amongst yourselves as a team, and really dig into those insights so you can come up with something really interesting creatively. So then next, tapping into the film's objectives. So what are the film's objectives? What would you like to achieve with this work? Where are you using it? What are your platforms, your channels? What is your call to action? What are you asking people to land on or feel or think or do, as I said before, after seeing this? What does success look like for you in terms of KPIs, if you have any? What budget is available? And moving on to the concept. So are you trying to overcome an issue with this film? What are your key messages? What's the issue landscape like at the moment, which is a very interesting and topical one to think about. Obviously, we know that sadly lots of funding has been cut in the environment sector and charity sector and aid around the world. And, you know, are there things that you can tap into, and can you be that mechanism of hope that you're talking to a kind of I guess a disheartened field at the moment potentially? And how will you do that in your creative work? You know, and are there events that are coming up? We have lots of climate events that happen throughout the year. They're a really good time to activate, but there are lots of big public facing moments as well that are really lovely to work with, like football events, for instance. Yeah, do you have any data or insights that might help drive the idea? And yeah, I think this is a really good place to start with, kind of trying to hone your brief and make sure you really dig into it and create something that everybody's happy with, because as we said, you are spending a little bit of money on it, or some money on it, and it has to be very, very valuable. I think it's worth saying as well that charity films, or films in general, can be used for up to 3 to 5 years. So obviously you can split your investment across that time period if you're thinking about it, and all of the other assets you can get from creating one film. You know, you can have social cut downs, interview cut downs, you can have stills that are exported and turned into design assets. It is an investment, but you get a lot of stuff for your money, we'd say.
Definitely. Yeah, just on that, I mean, like strategic deliverables, like I feel like many organizations have sort of multiple objectives. You know, you might have the fundraising teams who need personal giving films, or brand teams want a hero film for awareness, or the digital teams wanting photos for launch content or something. And instead of sort of tackling these separately, you can a strategic approach would be to achieve them within one project. So by planning ahead, a single film shoot can deliver, as Jem said, you know, a brand film, a case study film, photos, stills, and for digital content as well. So just maximizing resources also sort of ensures consistent messaging throughout all of your sort of awareness and comms packaging. So for example, going back to our big give approach to the Big Gives Green Match Fund campaign film, we started by really sort of getting to know the audience. Who are the people donating to the Big Give? What do they care about? What motivates them? So we dug into the audience demographics, the interests, and what they emotionally engage with. And then we turned the focus to the Big Give itself. What does it offer? And it's all about doubling donations and doubling the impact. And that's just a really simple yet powerful concept. And we thought, you know what, that's really satisfying. You know, that sort of instant feeling of gratification, seeing your money double with no extra effort. So we thought, let's tap into that idea of satisfaction. From there, we sort of had a brainstorm. What else feels deeply satisfying to this audience? So we made a list of sort of universally pleasing moments, things that sort of evoke that sense of fulfillment. And that sort of became the foundation of the script. So the goal wasn't really to explain the mechanics of the Big Give, although that did come in. It was more about the sort of how it emotionally resonated with donors, making them feel the kind of satisfaction of giving and seeing their impact multiply. So yeah, as Jem's saying, by putting the audience at the center of our approach, we crafted a message that hopefully didn't just inform, but engaged and connected on that sort of emotional scale too.
And this is all to say that sorry, Tids.
Carry on.
I was going to say, we're delivering our film to Big Give this week, hopefully, but it won't be ready until the launch date in closer to April. I believe it's April. Correct me on that.
Yeah, it'll be released 2 weeks before the campaign goes live, so you can share it and raise awareness. And yeah, hopefully all of your supporters will love it as well.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, this is to say that obviously creating a new film ahead of the Green Match Fund this year is probably not that possible in maybe the formats that we're about to take you through. But we think you know, you can definitely do some social content, and we really hope that you share this film with your audience and get lots of traction on it and love it as well.
Absolutely. Great. So now you've got a really good brief. You know your audience, you know your mission, you know what success looks like, you know how they want to feel and think at the end of the film. So you've got that. It's now time to shape your story. So I think first it's kind of finding that theme or maybe a character that's going to lead this message. So I know that many charities kind of potentially record case studies about the people they've helped or the places they've helped or something. So these case studies are sort of excellent sources of inspiration and briefing material for campaigns, making it really much easier to find potential contributors who want to be featured in the film. So yeah, keep on filming case studies. They could really help you find a great character for a film, someone whose lived experience reinforces the message or the mission of the film you're wanting to show. So with every sort of storytelling structure, there's a beginning. Oh, I think we're going on to the next slide, Jem.
Cool. Is it back here?
I think we're on the Big Give messaging slide.
Oh, really?
Was that just for me?
Maybe just for you. For me, it says developing your story.
No,
Yeah,
this
it's yeah, on the same on the Big Give messaging slide.
You're still on the Big Give messaging slide?
Yeah.
Oh, weird. Let's try again. Now?
I think
you might need to stop sharing and then share again. It's always some kind of tech thing with these.
Please don't mind us. Oh yeah, this is being annoying. Just please hold 1 second. There again.
There we go. We're back on.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So yeah, with every sort of story, you have a beginning, middle, and end. So at the beginning, you're sort of setting the context. This is where you establish your subject or your protagonist or issue in a way that immediately draws your audience. The first few seconds are critical. So you really got to think about what is the hook. Think about your audience. Why should they care? You know, if your film is going onto social media, you need to grab their attention in the first 5 seconds before they continue scrolling. So you can do this by sort of asking provocative questions or identifying like a sort of care emotion. You know, you could tell a really brief story or twist that sets up the character for later on. You know, creating that intrigue from the get-go, and you know, keep it simple, direct, and test it with people, and sort of appeal to our sort of shared values of love, family, hope, and things like that. So for a longer form piece, such as one for your website or YouTube, I think you probably have a little bit more time to create that intrigue, but the opening still needs to be really compelling. So now you've got everyone's attention and you are going into the middle of the film, and you need to keep it. So this is where you highlight the sort of stakes, you know, the conflicts, the challenges within your story. You show the problem and really introduce that human element, because essentially people do just connect with people. And so let us see that character struggling, overcoming something, you know, standing up for change. You know, if let the audience experience that journey alongside them, and along that journey there will be different points of connection for different people. So then we come into the end. You know, the end is where you guide your audience towards what you want them to do or think once the film is over. You know, is there a clear next step? Should they donate? Should they sign up? Should they sign a petition, share the message, or take another form of action? You know, hopefully there's a resolution of some sorts your character's gone through. So show a resolution, whether that's a sort of personal transformation or sort of a hopeful vision for the future, or the tangible impact of support or donations. So a strong ending leaves the audience feeling empowered, not just informed, but they feel like they can make a difference, and they're far more likely to take action. And I do think, generally think and believe, that we all make decisions on the back of feeling something, on the back of emotion. And that includes policymakers and politicians. So if you are able to do that in your storytelling, in your film, then that's really, really powerful. So this is a little case study we've got here. So we created a short impact doc for the Way Project, a UK charity that helps young people manage social anxiety and mental health challenges through surfing. I wonder if they're on this webinar, I'm not sure. But so to bring the sort of impact of their work to life, we followed the journey of Seb, an incredible sort of 12-year-old with ADHD and autism, as he took part in the 6-week surf therapy course. So from the very beginning, we wanted to see, you know, the before, the reasons why he was signing up, the decision they got there, and then, you know, the turning point where his mum signed him up to the course. What was that reason? And then going on that actual journey of transformation from the beginning of the course to the end, and seeing his struggles and breakthroughs, and the ultimate feeling at the end, and the impact of the course it had on his confidence, which was amazing. And we'll show you a little trailer here.
I'm not sure that there is such a thing as normal.
Sometimes I get a bit frustrated because my brain can go upside down, back to front, topsy-turvy, inside out.
Therapy works so well for him when it's accessible. They just all kind of felt like a big family.
My brain got into a corner. I got too afraid. I got my mind off everything, so I just.
I'm not sure if the sound properly came through on that, but hopefully you got the gist. Yeah, so that was our little trailer for the Way Project. And we launched this film at a sort of premiere event at the Wave in Bristol, featuring sort of panel discussion of stakeholders and policymakers. And we had QR codes that allowed the sort of attendees there to donate immediately after watching the film. which is always great, because once you watch something, you want to ask, you know, the next question is like, what can I do? So if there's a tangible thing that someone can do there and then after watching the film, then you're much more likely to garner donations. So we raised £6,400 on this, which was then matched by the Big Give. So thank you, the Big Give. And we really wanted to kind of extend the impact of the film. So we created trailer, film stills, and social media clips, which we packaged up and sent to lots of other people to host their own screenings during the kind of campaign crowdfunder duration. So it's been really amazing for the charity has used the film to sort of invite new young people onto their courses. It's increased their referral partners, and it's something which they can showcase at networking events when they can't necessarily explain the emotion or the impact of their work there and in these conference halls, and they can show it in this film. So while it was an upfront investment for the charity, it continues to be used for fundraising and awareness and outreach. So it's, you know, proving its long-term value.
I think also these sorts of films can open up conversations with big ticket funders and kind of corporate sponsors and people. And obviously they have lots of value beyond that, but I think it's not just for regular donors, it could be for bigger fundraising pieces as well.
Yeah.
Cool. So we're going to move on to different types of content that you could make for no and low film budget. So I guess the first and most obvious one is self-made content, stuff you see on social media, things that are shot on a phone often, and they can be very, very valuable. You know, we'd recommend not putting these sorts of piece of content on your website and prioritizing them for social media, but they can be, you know, if they're a really brilliant idea and they're briefed properly and they're created well, they can absolutely do it. You know, it's often story over production. You know, you're trying to get something super impactful through, and it can work on this sort of self-made content. You know, the beauty of this piece is that you can often get internal resource and people to do it who are on your team, or people who are in full-time content or comms positions to do them, granted if they have time to create them, and can use a bit of simple editing software. They can be really brilliant for showing certain types of things. So it could be brilliant for seeing things unfold in real time, so kind of BBC News style. They can be really great for beneficiaries creating their own content, collab influencer content, Q&As, success stories, behind the scenes, kind of a really raw and authentic look at what's happening in the here and now. And interviews, you know, a lot of people run interviews on Instagram and then they can put that and post it as a reel afterwards. So it can be a really good way of engaging your audience and keeping that conversation going. There are platforms that we use like Zoom that we're on now, but also there's a site called Riverside, which we use to record remote interviews with people often. In lots of our films, if people are around the world, we obviously don't want to fly there. We kind of pride ourselves on our green credentials and making things in the most sustainable way possible. So we catch people a lot around the world remotely on Riverside, and we create a webcast background, which is a simple design. It elevates it and we can edit it into our film. These are really good for people like expert interviews that are, you know, halfway around the world, and you don't want to get a film crew to do that. So yeah, these can be super fun. It has a really good place on socials, particularly. Anyone can make it. It's super budget friendly. And I think a really good point is that it adds humanity to environmental causes and charities. And that's, you know, the face of the climate crisis. You know, it's very hard to put that tangible effect on it. Why are people donating to your causes, and how does it affect people? You know, we understand, all of us, that the climate and nature crises are both a socio-political crisis as well. So it's kind of giving that human face, which we quite like, the idea of all the behind the scenes. And you can use cheap and free resources for editing, like Canva, CapCut, Premiere Pro we use, which is paid for. You can do a trial. InShot or iMovie. You can get subscription and free stock sites, such as ArtGrid, where you can get a subscription to and you can pull lots of lovely footage from. We do that a lot of the time. Envato and Unsplash photos are really good. And I guess in terms of content being made, it can take one to, you know, how long is a piece of string? 1 to 2 weeks on average to make this sort of content, depending on your resource available. And a tip is, if you're filming people and you want it to be a bit more professional, then invest in a good microphone, a mini tripod. And if somebody is shooting content for you, then brief them really fully on the technical details, framing, lighting, getting a key light source in there, making sure it's vertical if you want the film to be vertical, horizontal if you want it to be horizontal, making sure they keep it still, and recite things to camera. Having one briefing call with someone can make the world of difference when you're making content. I've got a couple of examples here just to show you. It's quite hard to find very good social content, but I really like this from the RNLI, just like some behind the scenes of like their amazing life-saving actions in progress. I'm going to turn the sound off. But I thought it was super cool, like you wouldn't get that on a professionally shot camera. You have it on like a camera that's strapped to like a GoPro or something, strapped to the helicopter or the lifeboat. And you can just get some really interesting stuff. Phone, like rig a phone, a bit dangerous, but you could do it. And here's a nice little BBC thing. They do this a lot on their socials. They just cleverly use graphics. They put subtitles on. Everything should be subtitled on social media. And they just use their images and assets, and it's just somebody talking to camera, but it can be really effective if the message is good, and it's really nice with live journalism to do this sort of thing as well.
Yeah, I would say also on, if the campaign, the Green Match Fund campaign is running for a certain like window of dates, and throughout that time where people can donate directly to your charity, to keep that momentum up, to keep that kind of people engaged, releasing these short little case study films which are filmed on your phone or whatever, and you can schedule them for like twice a week or something, just to keep that momentum going and get people directed to your fundraising page really helps.
I didn't mean to skip that while you're mid talking, so hopefully you can see the short impact doc slide now. Is that right, Tids?
Yeah.
Cool. So short impact docs, we kind of specialize in this as well as campaign films and all other types of comms, but we really love doing these short impact docs. I think you may have seen, some of you, we sent a package out, a charity short docs package. We just love to make them for charities, and they're similar to the Seb documentary that you saw earlier for the Wave Project. We've done lots of these. A couple of examples here are for children with cancer. It was for their it was part of Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. So they were essentially campaign films that we did with two young people called Josh and Eve. And they're just really lovely ways to, it was kind of like, when I grow up, I want to be a photographer, I want to be a dancer. And then we paired these people with specialists in their field so they could have like a lovely time, and the whole production is a treat for them as well. Often people, they never get the chance to go on set. So like having a makeup artist there with you, having a film team who are like directing you, particularly with children, it can be a super, super fun day and can be incorporated as part of the impact piece that you're going for. We did a big campaign film for children with cancer called Milestones, and it was like inviting people along to set so they could just have a really lovely time, and it was really nice to see people enjoying it. So these short impact docs, they can be made with a skeleton crew of people, a really small team of people, 3 people on set we normally recommend. Tids does a lot of filming for us. She produces and directs her backgrounds in TV, so it can be, you can do this really affordably. I know 4K, including VAT, it is probably a lot to a lot of charities, but you can use it for a long time, and you can split the investment, and they can be super impactful. So if you can afford it, then obviously these are professionally shot with real stories, really strong character development and story arcs. People are going to connect emotionally to these. They can be brilliant for fundraising. They get other beneficiaries on board. They can be good for stakeholders or prospective partners. They can raise awareness more broadly. I guess you wouldn't necessarily put a social media video on a cinema screen if you were hosting a private screening, but you could definitely do this. We can prep something for, or people can prep something for cinema. There's special audio specs. Obviously, this audio is much nicer in a cinema than your laptop. You can create social cut downs, you can have main edits, you can export stills and pair those with graphics, as I said earlier. And normally speaking, these take about 6 weeks from kickoff to delivery. So bearing in mind that if you have a really strong brief in place to start with, then you can start with pre-production. But there often is, these are made on short timelines. You can scale this to make it work. And I guess some tips would be, what existing stories can you develop and share? Tid said earlier that charities capture a lot of case studies and they can be super valuable. So you have a jumping off point to start with. You don't need to start from scratch. And if you can film for free at people's houses or at a free location or somewhere that's really affordable, often people would do deals for charities or non-profits. If they're really interested in the idea. And so it's kind of always pitching that idea, always going back to the core of why we're doing it, trying to bring that emotion in everyone you work with. You know, we are doing things on a budget, often most of the time as a production company, and getting people on board with your mission on why you do things, as you know, is priceless, but also why you're doing it for a particular project. To try and get the best rates that you can from people whilst paying them fairly, obviously, and getting locations cheaper than you would, or charity discounts. You know, obviously you have to ask, otherwise you don't get. So it's really helpful, we find, to try and see what deals you can get whilst being fair in the process.
Definitely. Yeah, I think, you know, video is like such an effective marketing tool, and explainer videos are great. And here, but like sort of hearing and seeing real faces and sharing their real stories is unbeatable. And, you know, especially when building trust, I think featuring real people, especially beneficiaries or volunteers, sort of builds like sort of credibility with your audience, sort of providing that sort of social proof. And sort of your audience are probably more likely to remember the work and the impact you're doing if it's being told through someone who's been directly impacted by it.
Yeah, the lived experience is so valuable. So another way of creating content is through explainer videos. The reason we put this in, we have an example from MacDoc Foundation, who are a UK and Australia based foundation we did some work with around natural capital. So myth busting, you know, what is natural capital and why is it important? We got 5 experts, including Razan, who's like the head of the TNFD, and people in Aborigine from Aborigine backgrounds, and, you know, asking lots of different people from the corporate world as well, you know, what is natural capital and why is it important? And it's interesting seeing the different levels of comms that you get from those different people, because, you know, from a person perspective, you know, natural capital is the life force of our planet, but from the corporate world, you can see it as a mechanism for investment and for understanding how it underpins the global economy. So, you know, explainer videos are important, I think, for climate and nature related charities, environmental charities in particular, because you're really broaching complex topics, and lots of people don't necessarily understand those topics because they're really difficult to understand and complicated, and getting that across in a 3-minute film is often very difficult. So it helps tell a nonprofit story, their themes and missions. It can be great for fundraising, and, you know, often there's a lack of human beneficiaries. You know, it's restoring habitats and landscapes, and it obviously affects people, but there's not necessarily beneficiaries whose stories you can profile. You know, there are, but if you're talking more about the direct impact that you're having on nature, you sometimes need these explainer videos to do that. And they can be used as part of a wider comms plan. You know, if you have a more developed comms plan, you can have an short impact doc and an explainer film to run alongside it. You know, lots of films and their methods have different impacts and different audiences that they target. So it's all about being strategic with it. You can obviously use cut downs on platforms. Again, they can be used for 3 years, 3 to 5 years often on usage. And they take around 6 to 8 weeks from kickoff to delivery, a little bit longer because often people don't have the case studies in the bank that you can pull on. And also because there's a lot of remote shooting that we do, and that takes coordination across different time zones, and so it can take a little bit longer. There's also more key messages in this thing, whereas a documentary, you're obviously going to document people and understand their story, and then you can put that into a story, whereas this, you're kind of doing the scripting up front, and you're thinking about the key messages throughout. I mean, you should always think about key messages, but hopefully you know what I mean. And I guess in terms of budget wise, these can often range from starting at 6 to 8K. There's more that goes into them. There's often lots of stock budget that you have to find. But yeah, if you have any inquiries, just let us know. Oh, I didn't show you the video, but that's okay. I think we are running out of time, so I won't.
We're running over, aren't we?
Yeah.
Okay, so now you've got your film, hopefully you've got your film and now this is the time where you think, how can I sort of launch it the most effectively? You know, what are we going to put any paid media behind it? You know, what is that kind of impact strategy which you're going to put or launch alongside your film? So when we look at this, we normally look at kind of two different approaches. So first, sort of start with the top-down strategy. So one of the most effective ways to create real change with a film is by putting it in front of the people who actually have the power to make a difference, or decision makers, policy makers, funders. So hosting sort of targeted screenings for organizations ensures that the film isn't just seen, but it's seen by the right people. And build momentum. So you want to build momentum in the lead up to that premiere. You can use the media, press, news outlets, publications. When a film makes headlines, it pushes these issues up the political agenda and puts pressure on leaders to act, and brings more people towards your campaign and on your cause. So that's the sort of top-down approach, but change doesn't always happen up in the boardrooms. It happens on the ground in communities, and that's where sort of that grassroots strategy comes in. So some of the most powerful impact from film happens when it reaches the people on the sort of front lines. So the beneficiaries, NGOs, activists, communities who are already doing the work or want to take action but unsure how. So by giving them a film they can use or feel empowered by or educate them on or feel that they can connect with, and rally support around, you turn that storytelling film into something which is kind of a tool to help others. And this is where sort of cross promotion plays a key role. So through social media, partnerships, collaborative campaigns, you ensure the film isn't just sitting on a website somewhere. It's actually being shared, it's being talked about, and it's reaching the people who need to see it. And as I said earlier, most importantly, create a clear pathway for action. So because when someone watches a film and feels inspired, as I said, their first question is, what can I do? So make sure they have an answer. You have an answer, whether it's donating or signing up to volunteer or signing a petition or, supporting the organization, whatever that is. The film acts as that bridge, connecting audiences to the people driving change. When you release your film, have that actionable pathway. And I think that's us wrapped up.
That's us done. Yeah, thank you everyone for listening. Obviously, if you want to get in touch, please do. And if you need any help on anything, then please let us know.
Yeah, really, really happy to help. I think hopefully you'll have our emails. So please, feel free to get in contact and we can run through any of this directly with you.
Thank you both. So a reminder, if you have any questions, put them in the Q&A box. But Beth, I don't know if you have any of your own advice or have any questions for Duna as well that you want to share.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know if there's any kind of common mistakes that you've seen in either films that you've had to kind of work with others on and talk to them about, or potentially just from your own review of films that you've seen come out. I mean, I think you mentioned one particularly about how important subtitles are, and I've definitely seen films in the past that don't include subtitles, and there's very much an importance around accessibility nowadays. But are there any kind of common mistakes that you see, particularly relevant to charities?
That's a good question. I mean, to jump in as well, I guess subtitles are a really practical thing. I think on YouTube, there's an option to add closed captions. And to do that, you need to create an SRT file, it's called. It is a subtitle file you upload to a platform. And therefore, when you click closed captions, CC in the bottom, it shows on the film automatically. So embedding subtitles in something means there's double layers. It makes it very inaccessible a lot of the time. So that's like a quick thing. I think it's just really hard often to get succinct messaging or like one story across. And an idea, when it's simple, an idea is always better, you know, keeping it simple, stripping back anything. You know, there's lots of different platforms for lots of different types of messages. And you also have captions when you post things. You know, I think people often forget that you can post something with something on Instagram that explains a stat. You don't have to put everything in the film. So I'd say, yeah, avoiding overcrowding things, make it clear and simple with a clear call to action, and it will be more powerful because there won't be a barrage of information. And I think learning to take away is as important as like the quality of stuff you put in there.
Yeah, I totally agree, Jem. I think we run across this quite a lot when we come to scripting and things, because a lot of organizations want to put all the information into the film script. It's not a press release. You know, the reason for the film is to create that emotion, and you're also hearing, you're seeing, and you're listening. So there's a lot of different things going on. So when there's lots of words and it's overcomplicated, it's kind of takes the impact away. So yeah, keeping it really simple and honing your messaging.
I definitely agree on that simplicity. And I think in addition to that, sometimes what might seem simple to you in your organization is actually still very unclear to someone who might be seeing you for the first time. Like we definitely in the past had videos at Big Give where we've been using our usual Big Give lingo in terms of doubling donations. Then someone new comes and sees it and it's like, what does this mean? So sometimes even just testing that with a kind of an external audience who might not be well embedded in your organization can be helpful as well.
Yeah, that's so true. It's like making sure you're not shouting in an echo chamber. Like, yeah, I completely agree.
I'll go ahead,
Oh,
Sahil.
I was going to ask as well, how mindful do you have to be of how people are consuming videos? Like, I think a lot, obviously, people are watching more videos on their phones more than anything, but like landscape versus portrait, for example, like, is there any advice there? Like, should people be mindful of like how they're sharing the videos and how they're filming them?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, often what is nice to do is to frame for 9:16, you know, because often I think people want things made in lots of different formats for lots of different platforms, which is completely fair and valid. You can have things that are natively like 9:16, so portrait mode, and that's often like self-shot footage and things, and it's really nice to have something made in that format. But yeah, just making sure that you're really clear on what you're going to use it for before you go and film means that you can frame accordingly. So you can capture something where most of the action is here, or it can be cut to square, and you're not including the important information here. You know, it's really hard, and there's lots of different techniques you can use. I think we've been talking about this with the Big Give campaign. You know, it's like, do we stack things on top of each other on a vertical screen? You know, how is it best seen? Like, is there information overload if you do that, particularly on a graphical section? So yeah, I just say be really mindful of it before you go into the filming or the creation of something, so you know what you're making it for, you know where it's going to be used, and you're not retrofitting, like shoehorning something in that really doesn't work, you know, of an interview that's shot too close. You know, if you film something 4K and beyond, you can just punch into that. You don't need to zoom in. You don't need to capture everything, you know, super close, etc. So yeah, that's what my advice would be. Tids, you.
Yeah, I mean, like building on that is, you know, like it completely depends on what platform your film is going to be released on. So really like looking into how you know, TikTok videos, which gets the most engagement, you know, portrait mode, really short and snappy UGC kind of approach. You know, if you're going for an Instagram post, then you know, people really like visually like stimulating content, so make it beautiful. Again, it can be portrait but the stories is more rough and ready. And then if you're going to like sort of YouTube, then think about landscape, because that's how it's delivered and that's what the sort of format is, or other ways of doing that. So yeah, really do some research on the platform you're showing the film on beforehand.
And if you can make something like native to that platform, then it will be even better. Like you say, bearing in mind how quickly people just scroll through stuff on Instagram, you know, how are you going to tailor that story or script or cut down to that audience? And then people that are watching things on longer form platforms like YouTube or Vimeo, you know, you're tailoring that story to make it. So anything that's tailored is always best.
That's great. And obviously, we're talking about film, particularly in relation to the upcoming Green Match Fund campaign. And you've gave loads of great advice, particularly around the kind of short form social content. But what do you think about charities potentially reusing kind of impact films or explainer videos they might have already, particularly to promote this campaign? Would you encourage that?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And if you can also, like, if you need to add a new call to action to something, you can do that really easily. You can change an end frame on a film super easily. I think you could probably do it. You can edit something if you've got a really high res version and change the end frame to have a different call to action if it's kind of got an out of date messaging slide on it. So I think, yeah, definitely reuse stuff that you have and kind of put any assets that you have and utilize them across a new campaign is a great idea.
Yeah. And like the more noise you're going to make in the lead up to the campaign, the more people are going to be aware of it happening. So really tap into that, look at partnerships, look at collaboration posts, try and just get more numbers to your page, to the Big Gives page. And if that means reusing content, then do it.
Yeah, we love collab posts. On Instagram, you can now do, so say if you create a video with an influencer, for instance, you could, or a celeb, that would be a push to get it to get them to share it on their socials. But you could always ask, you can do a collab piece where the film shows on your platform and on theirs, and it can just be a really good way to like collab those, like join together those audiences and make it much more impactful. We like those.
Just copyright on music if you're putting any music on your videos. I think with YouTube, if you do have copyrighted music, YouTube sometimes does prevent it playing on third-party sites. So that's just mindful if you're using like that YouTube link and embedding it in other places, it could prevent the video from playing, and just ask people to actually go to YouTube. So that's just something to be mindful of.
No, that's a really good point. We wouldn't recommend ever just pulling something like a popular track and using it on your film. We'd always recommend using something that you can buy, like a stock music piece, and I think a track. And like there are so many good options nowadays, premiumbeat.com, Artlist. There's lots of really good songs out there and tracks that are not cheesy and really work. Particularly for like cinematic storytelling. So yeah, you can often get subscriptions to them or also buy them per track, and they're super cheap. But if you are going ahead with a popular track, which is very, it is an option sometimes to license something popular for an affordable price for a charity. You just have to get in touch with their agent or go through some third-party platforms. But yeah, I imagine that's for more of a bigger advertising piece rather than this sort of content. But yeah, be careful. Bear in mind, if you don't buy it, actually, that's a mistake I hear. Sometimes people say there's a funny noise at this point, and it's because it's saying premiumbeat.com over the track, which is funny because it's like it's funny, it's very sweet. And so so just make sure you purchase something before you go ahead and use it, otherwise it will have a horrible watermark on there and it just won't sound good. Cool.
Don't see we have any further questions, so I guess we can wrap up. So I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was thinking it'll be Gemma and Matilda then. But no, thank you everyone for joining today's session. Particularly thank you to Gemma and Matilda. Really great insights there, and lots of helpful tips for us and our charity partners to take away. As mentioned, we have recorded this webinar, so it will be available on YouTube for you to review, share with any colleagues afterwards, and we'll try and make sure the slides are available as well. And that has the links that all Duna shared, and also their emails if you do want to get in touch directly. But thank you again for joining today's webinar. We'll have another one later on this week, so we hope to see some of you there as well. But in the meantime, have a lovely rest of the afternoon.
Thanks,
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.